rising to the top. Ragamuffin keeps striving in every way. International, what they call me international. When me ride palm with them and I move with the rhythm and I come down crucial. And me ride palm with them and then we sit down steady. Body me on the place I with the one Jamal skinny. We are the general. We sit up on the rhythm and over the mic incredible. I'm be right part of the rhythm, move with the rhythm, I sit down steady. Every ragamuffin you do, I feel rock and follow me. Jump up on the rhythm, make we ride it. We chat up on the mic and keep it international. Cause anytime we chop a mic, they call we give it a general.
Hey, what's up everybody? Joshua Casper here with Plugin Boutique, and we've got something special today. This is our first remote live stream, and please do let me know how it goes. If everything's all right, the connection stays consistent, you can hear me, definitely put it in the chat. Let me know what's going on. As I said, this is the first one that I've hosted. Obviously, I've done some with Rob from Producer Tech, but we're doing it from my house this time. And we're really excited to be joined by Grammy-Nominated Producer BT, the one and only. He's been a legend in the music scene for a very, very long time for a number of different reasons. And we're really pumped that he is here to join us on this first remote podcast. If you guys do dig the format, and it does work out stream-wise, we've got a bunch more lined up. Some mixing, some mastering engineers, some plug-in manufacturers, people behind the scenes, people in front of it, everything. We got a bunch lined up for you. So all that out of the way, things about this live stream. We're going to be chatting with BT. It will be a good size Q&A at the end. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat. We've got some team members watching the chat, and they're going to write down any of the questions you guys ask. And then at the end, I'm going to go ahead and run those by the man himself, and I'll leave it to him to respond and hopefully drop the knowledge for us all. Also, at the end of the stream here, we're going to be giving away 4 plugins to 4 winners. So 2 Stutter Edit 2s and 2 BreakTweaker Extended packages. So let's definitely stick around for that. And the way to win is if you've been active in the chat. That's where we're going to pick your name, and if the video gets 100 likes. So hit the like button now to make sure that happens. That's the gate, all right? So go ahead and smash that button now, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in BT and let him introduce himself. Hey, man.
Hey, man.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm really, really good. It's great to see you, man.
Yes, it's great to see you too. I really appreciate you taking the time to stop by and chat with us today. As I was saying in the intro, I don't know if you heard, but you are our first remote podcast guest. So please excuse if anything goes crazy, if anything catches on fire. That's totally my fault. This is my first go around, but hopefully it will be all right.
I love it, man. I love it. Absolutely. It's my pleasure. It's great to be here. And as you know, I'm a fan of what you guys do. So, yeah, it's a real honor to be here and to get to do some deep nerding. favorite, man.
Nice.
Always.
So if you wanna go ahead and just kind of let people know who don't know, I'm sure everybody already does, but just kind of give a, the elevator pitch about who BT is, what he does, and what we're going to be talking about today, which will be, of course, Stutter Edit. But if you want to go ahead and take the floor and just go ahead and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is BT. It's a nickname since early childhood, and I am a recording artist, an electronic music recording artist, a producer, a composer for films, television, and some other stuff that I can't mention right now. I'm in the throes of a big 3-year thing that I'm really excited about, and also too, I'm a technologist and a developer. So yeah, I kind of ride the line between many different things. So I composed music for films like The Fast and Furious and Monster with Charlize Theron, and I've produced artists from Tiesto and Armin van Buuren to folks like Howard Jones or Death Cab for Cutie. So I'm really lucky that I get to not only make music for a living, but I get to make instruments and design effects and other things that I use in my own workflow that are necessitated by my own workflow as a producer. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. I was actually reading the Wikipedia for you kind of as a lead up to this, and I saw that you have the Guinness World Record for most vocal chops. Does that hold true today?
Yeah, if anything, I've beaten my own record. So, and in fact, for sure, I'm positive I've beaten that record. But at the time, the song that got that award is "Simply Being Loved," and it was on. Geez, I can't even count what record that was now, sequence-wise, but it was on Emotional Technology record that I made for Black Hole and for Network. And so at that time, I had just recently produced some stuff for JC and Justin Timberlake for the NSYNC guys. And I did a song for them called Pop. And when I did that song, that's a crazy, kind of funny, long story, but those guys they were playing places like Madison Square Gardens, and then they would hop on their private plane after a show and come watch my House of Blues show in Tampa, Florida or something. So these guys were coming out to watch my shows and were asking me to produce some music for them. And for the longest time I said no, because I wasn't, it didn't really speak to me, the whole whatever, and I thought my electronic music producer friends would think it was just kind of silly or whatever. And it wasn't until I actually spent some time with those guys, and Justin and JC came over to the house and sat and sang and played acoustic guitar, and I listened to them and I was like, my God, these guys are ridiculously talented. Yeah, I'll definitely do something with you guys for sure. It was kind of an epiphany moment. Anyway, working on that song, I said to them before we got started, because they were obsessed with a song of mine from around that time called The Hip Hop Phenomenon, and it has a lot of these the early days of Stutter Edit. And so I said to them, look, if I'm going to produce something for you, I want to do this like the craziest kind of musique concrète type, cut and paste, micro fragmented aesthetic to your vocals. So think like Michael Jackson meets Autechre, like Michael Jackson in a blender, right? And to this day, Justin's singing style reminds me a lot of Michael Jackson, how rhythmic and plosive. It's hard to work with, actually, his singing style, do comps and stuff, in part because his vocals are so good. But anyway, so we did it, and I did these crazy vocal edits on that piece of music, all manually. And it was right around that time I had started on Emotional Technology, and I said, I'm going to kind of break my own personal record of vocal edits, which was in pop. And then I did that for Simply Being Loved. And I ended up doing 6,178 discrete hand edits to the vocal in that song.
Insane.
So yeah, it's kooky for sure. But so
I was actually thinking of the first. You produced one of the first pieces of vinyl that I ever had, and this is all kind of ties into Stutter Edit because it was Godspeed.
I love it, man. Nice.
Yeah, that was literally one of my first pieces of vinyl. I got my XL 500s. I think it was Pioneer belt-driven turntables, and I was ready to be a DJ. And I was like, I need vinyl.
Love it.
Let's get Godspeed.
Love it.
And there were actually vocal chops on that. And I think, if I can remember correctly, that was the first vocal chops I've ever heard that were like using it melodically. And I was just blown away.
I love hearing that. I'm one of those, very much credit where credit is due sort of things. Like I love tracing the origins of things in music in general, but particularly in electronic music. And I'm always trying to give kudos to people. Look, for example, who started the sidechain thing? I'd argue Daft Punk started it, but who popularized it? Deadmau5, right? So it's kind of like a two for sort of credit there. A funny story about the vocal chop thing. A song I did last year called Atari's Lantern that was a remarkably big track on Armada. It's crazy these days. Like the things make it on the right Spotify playlists and they get millions and millions and millions of streams from like a single Spotify playlist. So anyway, it was one of my more popular songs last year. And somebody on Instagram, like my OG fans are like, oh man, it's like throwback to kind of sort of ESCM sort of days. And I'm like, yeah, it's using a bunch of synths from that time. And somebody that was clearly, I don't know, under 25 was like, be those like vocal chops like you hear on, and I was like, cause I kind of made it up like
yeah
20 years ago. Like it's a part of my style, you know what I mean? But it means so much to me you said that, because back in the days of doing those early vocal edits, I was using first I was using hardware samplers, and I was using Recycle and then spitting stuff out to like an Akai S1100 and Sample Cell into really small fragments, and then I would take and I would put a channel on the board, and one would have delay, one would have reverb, one would have all the the lows rolled out of it, and I would play these melodic vocal chop lines, and I'd never heard it before in anything. Please fact check me. But I just it was just one of those things that I started doing kind of mid to early 90s, and it kind of stuck as a part of my signature style of music. So yeah, so anyway, it's just cool that you said that, man. I love hearing that you noticed those on Godspeed.
Well, I mean, that kind of leads us into, you said it was kind of like a labor of love. It took a lot of labor, and I mean the end product was something that you loved, and I guess that kind of leads us into Stutter Edit, and maybe why you're like, maybe I can do this easier if I put all the coding in and get it done right. I don't need to sit there for 5 days trying to chop things up and get it exported and rolled out and so on. So why don't you take us from kind of that, where it started, into maybe Stutter Edit 1, and then to where it is now in Stutter Edit 2. Maybe the process there.
Absolutely. And when you say effort, like bold and underlined, underscored and bold, tremendous amount of hand, like actual labor is so time intensive to do that at that time. So Stutter Edit has a pretty awesome origin story. When I was about 14 years old, I was a tape op at a local studio, and they would let me experiment with the gear after hours. And one of the engineers there, named Brian, taught me to edit on 1/4-inch tape, and splicing in leader and using a razor blade and a grease pencil and stuff. And so I would stay after hours and record my drum machines and early sampler, probably an S900, my Juno 60, and little tracks that I was working on. And I had this crazy idea to actually spool out a piece of tape at whatever BPM and figure out how long that a bar was. And so the first thing that I did was to spool out a piece of tape at, like, let's say, 122 beats per minute. And okay, that's 7 feet long at 15 inches per second, whatever it was. It wasn't 7 feet, but let's say it was. And so 3.5 feet is a half note, right? And so I was able to figure out very simple rhythmic subdivisions. And the real epiphany moment for me was when I realized I could cut these pieces of 1/4-inch tape and splice them back in an order that they weren't in a non-linear order, right? And this opened up quite literally a portal that has informed so much of my kind of creative thought ever since I was a 14-year-old kid. So I graduated to samplers and guitar pedals and began cutting up things in finer and finer resolutions before I'd ever heard anyone doing anything like this too. And in fact, a lot of this was sort of more informed, like musique concrète, because I studied classical music as a kid, and I had an amazing teacher that exposed me to more experimental stuff. So aleatoric music, 12-tone row, and early electronic music. So your Stockhausen, John Cage, Ian Xenakis types, right? So I was really interested in that, like, tape cutting kind of aesthetic. So I graduated to samplers. Then the early DAWs came out, sound tools, right? Not even Pro Tools, sound tools. And I was able to actually look at audio waveforms. I guess you could do that in some of the samplers, but with a much greater detail and resolution. And I could work to grid too. So I started doing things where I would cut sounds up into 30-second notes that lasted a dotted 1/4 note, so 3/8 notes, and I would apply flanger to it. And then I would move to the next piece, and I would apply a reverb and cut that slice up into 16th notes, and then reverse the whole chunk, and so on and so forth. And it got more and more complex until I finally started applying simple kind of curves, so logarithmic, linear, and exponential curves to these. That was a real awakening moment for me musically, and a lot of stuff in some of these tracks like Godspeed and so on and so forth. And eventually, I'm sometimes spending 8 to 10 hours on a single bar of music.
Yeah.
Literally working at a pace like an animator, And so I was like, I have to figure out a way to automate this. So Stutter Edit was born as a Max and C sound patches, and I made it for basically, to perform with. So when I was doing laptop shows in the mid to late 90s, back when no one was doing that, like, people were like, what is going on? Like, I cannot believe you have a laptop on stage. All my friends were playing vinyl. And so I made it for performance context. And then over a period of time, I just said, this has to be like an actual piece of software that can be shared. And so, I hired some guys. We spent a lot of time sitting on my couch coding, and Stutter Edit 1 was born. And then, the first Stutter Edit has been used in such unbelievable things, from asteroid flybys and Star Wars to Taylor Swift singing through it to, it's unbelievable, some of the usages of Stutter Edit. And so it's thrilling for me because I needed it for my own workflow, but then to see other people utilize it in totally different kind of brain-breaking ways I would never think of using it was just as rewarding as getting to have it and use it myself. Mm-hmm. And so Stutter Edit 2 is a really natural extension of Stutter Edit 1. It's remarkably more powerful. It's got all kinds of incredible high-end DSP stuff in it, and it's also capable to, something that's really important about Stutter Edit 2 I always like to mention is it's capable of making much more subtle and nuanced sounds than Stutter Edit 1. Whereas in Stutter Edit 1, you hear it and you're like, that's definitely Stutter Edit. Like, I would hear it in a record on the radio or in a trailer or in a film, and I would immediately recognize it. I realized that some of the power of Stutter Edit is not just the buffer cutting, but this rhythmic application of effects. And I see people doing this stuff with like 30 things, timelines of things to different chorus or, or reverb that's side chaining. And so I made it so you could just do basically multi-rhythmic effects. And so some of my favorite things to do with Stutter Edit are like put it on my synth bus and do, a side chain that every, fourth quarter note, it flies into a reverb and flanger, and then it goes back to just a traditional side chain. So it's an awesome effect. And I say that knowing I'm biased, but also too, like seeing my friends use it and to, just remarkable effect. So that's kind of the whole little soliloquy, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, another really cool thing about Stutter Edit 2 is, from a purchaser's standpoint, and you were talking about your DSP, you're essentially getting a multi-effect that you can just use. Like if you need a reverb, you've got reverb there that you can just use as a straight reverb. It doesn't have to be mind-blowing choppiness. It can just be a reverb there for you that sounds absolutely fantastic. And I thought, I mean, that's just like added benefit if you grab the plugin, because it's just got everything already there for you.
I couldn't agree with you more, man. And it's funny you mentioned the reverb, because the reverb is so unique that I thought a lot about actually breaking it out into another plugin, because it's so, comes from a lot of that idea comes from the more sort of modular world where, with the modular, I'm looking at my modular, you can't see it, but like with the modular, there are DSP modules where you're not really thinking about the decay of a reverb or the pre-delays or something. Anything can be modulated. And so I wanted to be able to do that in a plugin, but do it rhythmically, because a lot of I love modular type music, but a lot of it is very kind of like, oh my God, you're like, feel like somebody's going to jump out. You never know what's happening, it's not kind of founded in a meter, a lot of it, which makes it cool too. But anyway, I wanted to take that kind of modular application of effects, like you said, and make something that works as a plugin. So you're right, like you can have a whole bank of just reverbs of different sizes, and you can switch between them on keys. So, you have a snare throw, and I've done this exact thing. You have one key is a really long reverb. The next key is a pitch bent reverb. The next one is like a very short reverb, and so on and so forth. So it's so much fun to play around with. It's crazy.
I agree 100%. 100%. It's just a phenomenal plugin. And that's why I like to talk to you about it, because you're passionate about it, you know about it, and I am as well. Another thing I wanted to know about was just so when did BreakTweaker come along? Was that before Stutter Edit 1, or is that after?
That's a good question. So I actually developed both of those things at the same time. So there was a couple years, literally, where it was me and two other guys on my couch, and shout outs to Dr. B from Berkeley. Dr. Boulanger was still is one of my great teachers, and he helped me find some of those original guys that helped to code those two applications. So but yeah, we developed them at the same time, kind of. And it makes sense too if you think about it, because it's all this micro rhythmic sort of complexity that you don't see in a drum machine. No one had put out a drum machine that was isorhythmic. There was not one where you could do 7/8 against 4/4 against 3/4. There wasn't a single one that did that. There was nothing in the XOX style grid where you could do subdivisions of a 16th note. And so it's a lot of the same ideas, except one is cutting audio and the other one is making drums.
Right.
But they're similar sort of rhythmic figures, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And another question I had, and I'm just personally curious about, is when did the good people at iZotope get involved? Like, what was that? How did that relationship begin and evolve? And I mean, just curious, because at Plugin Boutique, we're good friends with all of them over there. We know them personally, and it's just cool that you guys got hooked up as well.
It's amazing. So actually, Mark, the CEO of iZotope, and some of the early days folks at iZotope, some that aren't even there anymore, actually, that one of the first partners were mentored as well by Dr. B.
Okay.
And so we actually, so a lot of those guys are MIT guys, and Dr. B taught at MIT for a while, and then he taught at Berkeley. And so I had this, I mean, he's an unbelievable teacher. And so we met through Dr. Boulanger. And what's so cool is at a point, you know, I thought that I was going to launch those 2 plugins as my own company. And Mark and I had become friends over the years. I'll never forget it. We were in Miami and we were having a coffee, and Mark was like, you know, maybe we should put these plugins out, you know, and then you can focus on like the creative side of it, and we can worry about tech support and all these kind of things. And this is literally before iZotope had 20 employees. So this is like early days.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we've been friends ever since. And I think the world of iZotope, totally outside of plugin development, they're such a remarkable group of people. And also, there's not a single person that I have met or worked with there that is not so proficient and competent at what they do and a cool person, which is like
It's rare.
building a
Yeah.
I mean, dude, building a culture like that is awe-inspiring to me. So I just think that, and that goes from the top down too. So, you know, Jonathan and Mark and the folks there run an awesome operation, and it's thrilling for me to work with them. I just think the world of them.
Very cool. Very cool. That's good to know. So yeah, it's been about a half an hour, and we've got quite an active chat. And I was just thinking it's time to open it up, and maybe you could field some questions from the community. How's that sound?
Yeah, I'd love it, man. I'd love it. I wish I could see the questions there. I guess you'll read them to me, though, huh?
I'm gonna read them to you. I'm gonna get my friend to send them over to me now.
Nice.
And I just want to shout out again that we're going to be giving away Stutter Edit 2 to two lucky chatters, community members, and we're also going to be giving away 2 BreakTweakers as well. So people are going to get hooked up for being a part of this. So
I love
guys, put your questions in the chat now. We're going to start sending them BT's way so he can give you what you're looking for. Very cool. So where have you noticed Stutter Edit 2? You said that you've seen it in Stutter Edit 1 and Star Wars and so on. Have you noticed Stutter Edit 2 in anything more pop or more recent?
Well, the funny thing is, actually, I have. I've noticed it in a bunch of Netflix movies, believe it or not, since its launch.
Nice.
And I know that once movie theaters open up again, I'm going to hear it in a lot of, popular films. But I mean, it's crazy the list of people that have gotten it and were freaking out. Like the day we launched Stutter Edit, one of the girls at iZotope was like, "Hey, BT, have you ever heard of Brian Eno?" And I was like, yeah, he's only like one of my favorite producers of all time, And she's like, "Oh, well, because he bought the plugin." I was like, "Brian Eno bought the plugin. Oh my God, return it, please. Can we give him an NFR? He's like one of my heroes. He can't buy the plugin." Oh. And so, I mean, the list of people that have got Stutter Edit 2 is really incredible, from Tycho to Brian Eno to, I mean, you name it, like Armin van Buuren. So privately, I know that everybody's kind of using it on all the stuff that they're working on. So I'm sure that as things kind of open up, I'll have plenty of spottings of it. But, there you go.
Well, I think as well, going back to kind of what we were talking about before, because of how you can use Stutter Edit 2, you might hear it everywhere just because it's not a stutter edit. Like it could be everywhere at this point, and it probably is. Yeah.
That's a really good point, is it can be used in such a subtle way. Like I said, I mean, I would never think of using something else at this point for side chains, because I can make such interesting side chains in it. Like I mentioned, where for example, as opposed to just sidechaining amplitude, I can have a very mid-length room reverb and sidechain the wet dry of that reverb, and it's such a killer sound on a synth bus. So you're right, there will be a lot of times where I'm hearing it and I'm not noticing it as much as Stutter Edit 1, but I anticipate too that there's going to be some like big uses of it. So yeah, so there you go.
Cool. All right, so I got a few questions here.
Nice.
The first one is from Noah Masi, and he is wondering how you like to add top end and texture to kicks. And he's wondering if you're doing it by layering or by processing, and he would love to know.
Oh, man. What a great...
It is a really great question.
That's a fantastic question. Well, so to start with, if you're adding top end information to kicks, it indicates to me a specific style of music, because in and what I would say is kind of faster house-oriented music, so kind of progressive stuff up through trance. Is what that would indicate to me, because a lot of the deeper sort of stuff is using, especially now, guys like Marsh and Grum and some of these guys are doing these really muted kind of desk distortion, mid-90s 909 kicks. There's this whole new thing happening with kick drums recently that when I first heard it, I was like, oh no, this is like, we were trying to avoid this a long time. And now it's so good. It's so refined because, people understand mastering and mixing so much better than they did back at that time. So, but I love this question. And I would say I'm always building kicks in layers 100% of the time. So I like to have kind of what I'll call a knock, right? Which is the sort of plosive kind of less than half a second body thing, but no subharmonic information. So, brick wall kind of FIR filter those around 120, maybe 110 around there. And nothing above like sort of 700 either, right? So, right, a knock, like a tuk sort of sound, right? Yeah. And then with the sub, I like to always have a pitch envelope on the sub. You can do that with something as simple as a hardware or software synthesizer, like doing it in Serum personally. Just a nice pitch enveloped, maybe low pass filtered square wave. And then for that really top sort of thing, I will use all kinds of weird stuff. And in fact, the other day I was making kick drums and I made a sample kit of scooting sheets of paper on the table, like sort of sound. Yeah. And it the coolest kind of top texture for a bank of kick drums I was making. So I would say a really good thing to explore is field recordings for those kind of click sort of sounds. And they get so small you can tap a pencil on your laptop, and that can be an incredible click for a kick drum. The last thing I'll say about it is for your clicks, I've got a cool little trick for you, which is, and this comes from my early drum machine days, and I do it with every kick drum I make, and look at my records visually and you'll see this, is I cut them off axis. So you're supposed to have a fade in on your transient for a kick drum. I never, ever, ever do that. And like on the MPC 60 or the 3000, you couldn't look at the waveform. And I remember pulling some of my kick drums out of those drum machines. I still use them, but pulling them out and looking at them on a computer and saying, well, this is cut wrong. Like, here's the axis and the attack is off axis here. So there's a DC offset. What it does is it makes the most incredible little 2K
click
pop on a kick drum. It's what you're after. So that's what I'd say. Field recordings and try cutting things off axis. You'll be really surprised by that.
You heard it here first, folks. I mean, that's the trick of the trade right there. I can't believe you shared that secret. That is a good tip. I'm actually going to try. I'm going to try that out. I might even do a BT inspired tutorial on it.
Yeah, man, it's really, really good, that one.
So the next question is from Cody Duke, and he's wondering what your favorite plugin is. I mean, we already talked about this. I posted a video, but if you just want to break down your number one, outside of Stutter Edit 2, of course.
I will say I'll just throw at you a couple plugins that I've really been using a lot recently. So I'm going to throw two plugins at you that seem like they're kind of boring, but that are so good at what they do. One is, I'm going to mess up this company name, but I think it's Oki Sound, something like that. Soothe 2. That is like the craziest kind of, almost like, it just takes the bad part out of any sound. You can use it on drum overheads. You can use it on a vocal. I use it on modular stuff, and I'll put the bands really fine, and it just pulls out resonant bands in audio material in a way that's so freaking musical. I can't even stand it. I couldn't live without that plugin. So that's one I love, really love. And another one that I just got recently that I'm crazy about is the Clariphonic Parallel EQ that Kush Audio makes.
Okay.
You know, a lot of sort of sounds I'm trying to dial in a very, you want a kind of exciter sort of sound. Like if you unnaturally amplify the high end especially with something that hasn't passed through outboard gear, or, lives in the computer, it tends to get brittle and sound quantized and aliased and stuff. And this just it's that kind of magical 7 to 10K sheen lift on any sort of sound. So those are two of my favorite, albeit kind of boring plugins, but plugins that I've been using a lot recently. They're great, both of them.
I mean, yeah, it's not necessary. I mean, if it's about function, really. Like my go-to for the longest time, super easy plugin to use is Track Spacer.
I love it still. It's great.
It's not like the most incredible. It's not giving me crazy sounds or whatever. It's just doing exactly what I needed to do each and every time perfectly, and that's why it's my favorite. So that's great. It's a perfectly acceptable answer, BT. We won't fault you for it.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Next question is, when you're starting a new session, and this is from Colin Hauser, they're wondering if you start with a sort of template or if you just go to an empty session. And I guess for me, and I'll just add this to the question, is when you get into making music, do you have the vision on where you want to go, or is it just kind of getting in, messing about until you have sort of a happy accident and get inspiration? Or maybe how those two things come into play with one another?
That's an awesome question. So I've actually been spending a lot of time kind of codifying how I do this, because I've been working on a master class, and I've been working on it for months and months and months now. And so that's a big project that I'm going to release next year. I'll give you the very simple answer to this, though, which is I'm a huge believer in templatizing repetitive work. So
100%.
It's the magic. It really is. So it's not to say that you can't have your fun free-for-all writing sessions where you start with nothing, but once something starts to kind of grow, like a seed is planted and begins to germinate, that goes immediately into a template. And honestly, I've got templates for everything. I've got a film compositional template that works with my VE Pro rig, and it's just thousands of contacts in Cubase and the VE Pro. I've got a Logic Audio synth auto load that is every synth in this room, all live, ready to rock. I've got some Ableton kind of dance music templates where I keep some drums and stuff in there. So I would say my very simple answer to this is, well, keep your eyes peeled for this masterclass I'm doing next year, because it's insane. We've literally been working on it so long. But think about the things that you repeat a lot, and think about baking those into a session so that when you open it, you're immediately inspired. That's my simple, very, very simple answer. But I wish we had time to talk more about that, but it's a great question.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I mean, even something like Ableton Live, you can have certain things like effects racks ready to go. So to not slow down, not slowing down, I think, and I talk about it every time I talk on a video. I say it's all about workflow. Not slowing down is key. If you got it burning, you just gotta go. You know what I mean? I feel you 100%.
That's exactly it. Like I'll tell you, like a silly one is, if you are constantly high pass filtering things with your EQ, save as your stock patch the high pass filter instantiated. You can leave it at 20 hertz, and just then you can really quickly swipe it up. I did this whole thing on it. I don't know the numbers by heart, but I figured it out. If you find a task, right, that you do 30 times in a day, right, and that task you end up spending 10 minutes of your day on it. If you add that up over a year, you get days of your life back by automating that task, and it's just more time to write music. So always look for things like that, where it can seem like it's such a simple little thing, but like you said, man, it can speed up your workflow so much, and you just ultimately write more music. You feel more creatively fulfilled. It's just a good thing all the way around.
For sure, 100%. Speaking the truth, BT here on Plugin Boutique. Make sure to.
Nice.
Another really great and interesting question from John Neves, and is, how did you get your break? If it was maybe one specific moment or a cascade of things, and also, have you ever discovered an artist yourself where you were like, you maybe saw yourself in them and was like, I need to help this person become who they're meant to be?
Absolutely, both things have happened. So the first one is how I got my real first break was, and I had put out one record before this. One person talked about it, a guy named Larry Flick from Billboard magazine. It was the first thing that ever happened to me. But my real first break was when Sasha, DJ from England, heard my first early tracks, and he called me up and he invited me to come to England, and I got my record deal on that trip. And so I owe such an incredible debt of gratitude to Sasha and all the folks that were so supportive of my music in England at that time. That was my first break. And yes, so full disclosure, I'm constantly in a process of sort of mentorship with people that I think are gifted. So I get to, we've been all locked down this last year, but I get to meet people at shows all the time. They'll give me their demos, and every now and again I'll get something that is freaking remarkably good. So much so, actually, my friend Christian and I have started a record label we're launching next year for just kind of synth wave sort of music. We were getting given so many demos when we were out with Howard Jones last summer, 2 summers ago. My God, I lost track of time.
2020,
and
man.
So I know, dude. It's like, who can even? So at any rate, a great example of this are, about, let's see, it's 2020, about, I'd say 8 years ago now, maybe even 9 years ago now, I was given demos when I was playing at a club in DC, and somebody kind of snuck back and handed me a key drive or whatever. And, I listen to everything that I can when people give me their demos. And I was so blown away by the stuff that these guys were doing. And so I called them up, and I literally went and met with, he was 16, 17 at the time. And I went and met with his parents. I spoke to his parents on the phone, said, how talented their kid is and if I can help out and stuff. And so, my wife and I would like sit him and his friends around our kitchen table and tell him like, high pass filter everything, pay your taxes, eat your greens. I'm serious. I'm not even joking. and he's gone on to be the touring DJ with Enrique Iglesias.
Crazy.
His name's Brady Wiggins. He goes by Fractal, and his best friend is his best friend's AU5. And so I've had them here at the house literally since they were kids, and gotten to talk to them and watch them develop and grow. And so that's one of the most thrilling part. And I've done that generation after generation over years and years and years. There have been some remarkable people that I've gotten to privately, because you don't really need to, doing that kind of work. It's like there's the people that do the work, and then there's the people that talk about it.
Yeah,
and
yeah, that makes
you know what I mean? And so I feel so blessed to get to do this for a living, and for so long, that I want to be. And also too, it's inspiring for me seeing new ways that people are approaching problems that we've been working on in music for years. And so I love being able to do things like that. So yes, on both.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I actually know both of those cats, and now that you mention it, I can hear the influence that you've had. It's definitely not by any means or by any stretch copying what you do, but you can hear the influence, and they're just pushing it into what, their style, their genre.
Totally, yeah. Absolutely. And both, I mean, there's such that whole group of people too. They have another friend, John Prismatic, and there's Austin A5 and Brady. They're just such a great group of, I want to call them kids, but they're not anymore, but when I met them, they were, and they're so talented. And so it's thrilling to me to get to see them blow up the way that they have and have such, remarkable careers. They totally deserve it. And so I love being able to, it's so thrilling, man, finding something where, even finding singers where you're like, nobody has heard this person. On my last album, I found this girl, Christy Krings, that has a project called Nation of One. And I was like, oh my God, her voice is incredible. And have subsequently, done a ton of pieces of music with her. So I love that kind of stuff.
So on the same kind of thread here, someone named Robert Foy is asking, is there an artist that you want to work with, that you have, there's just like on your bucket list, if it were, if it existed, is there somebody that you really want to work with?
Yeah, there is. There's a couple people. And it's crazy. I tick them off every now and again, people that I'm just dying to work with, like Vince Clarke from, Yaz Depeche Mode, have gotten to work with now. It's a hero of mine. The ones I'm going to throw at you are a little bit weird, or not weird, but you might not think of them when you think of me. So one is, I think my favorite rapper is Missy Elliott, and I have always wanted to do some music with her. So she's one, and we've almost crossed paths a couple times. I have a feeling that'll happen at a point. And another one is so wildly different curveball is the Chrono String Quartet. They're my favorite modern classical music ensemble, and I would absolutely kill to work with them as well too. So those are kind of two that just came to mind right now.
This is a question for me. Leading off of that, how do you approach, because I mean it's almost an internet meme among music producers at this point, is like, collab bro, check my SoundCloud. How would you go about approaching someone like Missy Elliott? Is it done through managers, or is it done, you meet them somewhere and you just get to clicking, and if it clicks, it clicks, and then you go from there? Like, how does someone at your level get the collab bro down?
I get those kind of, using the kind of meme language, people dropping into your DMs sort of stuff all the time. Yeah. And typically I don't take that kind of stuff very seriously. I mean, even if it's like a big artist, somebody sees something, that you've posted and they're like, hey man, let's do a collab. And you're like, I don't know. I mean, like, and I'm not saying things haven't happened that way, but typically the really genuine ones are in person or through friends, where like for example, the Kronos String Quartet, they work with an orchestrator that I just think the world of, and has worked with them many times. And I have a feeling that at a point that will just naturally happen because we'll be in the same spot at the same time, and we'll talk about it and we'll figure out something cool to do. Context is a big part of it, I guess, is what I'm saying. Is like, just collaborating in a vacuum seems pretty vapid to me.
No,
It's
agreed,
like,
agreed, 100%.
I would much rather explore something with an artist who I admire and respect. A big one of those just came up. Like, I'm literally about to check something off my bucket list early 2021, but I can't say who it is yet. And I'm like dying to say who it is. But I got approached very organically through a mutual friend by a band that is one of my favorite bands, full stop, from the 80s. Whoa. One of my absolute favorites. And they asked me to do their next record. So we're figuring that out right now. But it's typically, I like a longer form of collaborative conversation. It's just not like a song, it's
Right.
like a relationship, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. The collabro, the kind of cold calling over the internet via SoundCloud links is, it feels weird. It feels strange. And there's no way, like, music is a thing where you connect with somebody. It's an emotional thing, and it's just like, I agree with you 100%. And make sure you come back on the remote podcast to let us know when that launches so everybody can check it out.
I will.
Nice.
It is brain breaking who it is. Honestly, it's literally one of my favorite bands ever of all time. So we're talking, and it got kind of crazy with all the COVID stuff because they want to work in person. So and I do too. Like, I want to be in the room with these guys. So I will definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, sure.
So one last question. Let me see who it's by here just real quickly. Reason 214 is, what is the difference between your methods of mixing and mastering today from, say, 10, 15 years ago? How has it changed?
That's amazing. These guys are bringing like the great questions
Plug and
today.
Boutique, babe. Plug and Boutique community.
For real. Like, wait, like, how do you get a good click on your kick drum? I'm like, wow, this is great. We're off to a good start here. So that too is an awesome question. I'll say I'm gonna parse out the mastering thing and just say this about mastering: I never master my own records. I admire it when people do. I've worked with the same mastering engineer for 20 years. She is an absolute wizardess, and I would never think of mastering my own records because she is so good at it. It's a totally fresh perspective when I'm done with a piece of music. So I pass it off. I say yes or no. Hey, Emily, go back in and maybe, tweak this one thing a little bit, but I trust her ears implicitly. Her name's Emily Lazar at the Lodge. If you don't know them, you should. They're incredible. They win a stack of Grammys every year now. And I was her first client too, so I'm so thrilled for her success. So Emily masters all my records. Okay, but I will say about mixing has radically changed. Obviously, exactly. Plug-in Boutique we're talking to. It's like plugins have gotten so freaking good over the years that I mean, I don't know how much you can see in the shop, but like I have a good amount of outboard gear here, and I find myself using outboard gear maybe 20% of the time and 80% of the time using plugins because I can have 30 instances of them open. They sound amazing. And so I think the technology has changed really radically. That's one piece, is plugins have gotten so much better. So working and mixing in the box can sound like an analog recorded record now. So that's one piece. And the second piece, and it's probably the biggest difference, 10, 20 years ago to now, how I score film or how I make records, is stems. So everything would be printed as a 2-track master, and I haven't done that for 15 years. So everything now I stem out, and then Emily takes it, puts it up on a Neve console, analog sums it to a final 2-track master. Sometimes we hit physical tape, and it's just such a different sound to trying to squeeze all that audio information into a 2-track master. That analog summing from stems is where a lot of the magic is, in my estimation these days. So there you go.
Very, very cool. So yeah, man, look, we can wrap it up. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I really appreciate the time you did take to come by and talk to us today.
Oh, my pleasure.
From talking about Stutter Edit 2 and its history to answering some of these questions and even giving us some of the really good stuff with the off-axis kick there. I'm gonna go try that out immediately.
Try that.
Yeah, I've got to do it because when you think about off-axis, you're gonna get a clicking sound, and it's like, well, that's the point.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
What you want.
Classic.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. We can let you go. I do have to ask you though not to hang up the Skype call. You can mute yourself. I'm gonna put you off camera, but just don't disconnect because it will disconnect me too, I believe. So just leave it on, and I'll let you know when it's over and the stream is ended. But thank you. The community thanks you. Lots of people in there saying
pleasure.
that they got nothing but love for you. Great job on everything. Great job on Stutter Edit 2. And I hope to talk to you again soon, man. Thanks for being the first remote podcast guest.
My pleasure. And to everybody, happy Hanukkah, which it started, and Merry Christmas. So
Perfect.
I hope you guys have a great holiday.
All right, man. Talk again soon.
Okay.
And
All right.
just don't hang up on me.
You got it, man. I'll just hit mute.
All right.
Okay, take care.
All right, so there you go, guys. BT, the one and only. We're going to be doing the giveaway now, so make sure you hit that like button. I'm not sure how many likes it's gotten yet, but it doesn't have enough, that's for sure. Make sure you're in the chat. We're going to get the names from the chat. We're going to choose 4 names, 2 Stutter Edit 2s, 2 BreakTweaker Extended editions, and let me know in the chat if you liked it. If you liked the remote podcast format, this is something we're looking to do. So as long as you guys, enjoyed it, as long as you thought it went well, there weren't any hiccups, we're looking to do it. Also, if you want to put in the chat who you want us to interview, who you want to be part of this stuff, definitely let us know, because we've got our hands up to a lot of different people and we want them to come get involved. And we also want people you want to hear about. So go ahead, comment now who you want to see in the future, and we're going to go ahead and pick 4 names at random in T-minus 1 minute. I'm going to look at my phone. The 4 names are going to come right here into my WhatsApp, and it's going to come in about 1 minute. Who do you guys want to see? You guys want to see artists? You want to see music makers? You want to see guitarists? You want to see Deadmau5? Yeah, we're going to get him for sure. He'll be up next, right? Who else? I see a lot of DJs in there, a lot of top-notch producers. Oh man, I'm trying to think of who I want to get next. You guys want to talk to mixing or mastering engineers, or just producers? Come on. Phineas, yes. Phineas is on the list for sure. All right. My contact is typing the names. The first name is in, guys. You gotta do it now. You gotta type it now, guys, because the names are beginning to roll in. The first name is Colin Hauser. You win Stutter Edit 2. Contact support at Plugin Boutique with the headline live stream winner, and we are going to hook you up with Stutter Edit 2 from the one and only BT and one of our favorites, iZotope. Keep it coming. Second name is coming in. Guys, this is the crescendo. This is the moment you've been waiting for. All right, next name, Cody Duke. You are a winner of BreakTweaker Extended. Go ahead and send an email to support@pluginboutique.com with the headline live stream winner. All right, next one's coming in right now. Robert Foy. You win Stutter Edit 2 from BT. Incredible plugin. I have it. I use it often. You are a winner of that. Send an email to support@Plugin Boutique. Headline live stream winner. Last chance. This is it. Last chance. Go, go, go. We're typing. Last one, Flower Boy Beats. You are our final winner from today's live stream. You win BreakTweaker Extended. All gifts provided by and courtesy of BT and iZotope. Thanks to both of them, the entire company at iZotope. Nothing but great people there. Thanks to BT for taking the time. Thanks for everyone joining in, being a part of the chat. And we look forward to doing this again because I think it went well. I'll have to watch it back. I hate watching myself, but we got to do what we got to do, right, guys? So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for being involved. Congratulations to the winner. Thanks again to iZotope. Thanks again to BT. I'm Joshua Casper for Plug-in Boutique, and I'll see you in the next video.